KPBS On Demand is supported by UC San Diego's Art Power, presenting Good Writing, an evening with Anne Lamott and Neil Allen at the Balboa Theater on April 1st. Tickets at artpower.ucsd.edu.
It's time for KPBS Midday Edition. On today's show, we're talking all about friendship, how to make friends, where to make friends, and how to keep friendships strong. I'm Andrew Bowen, in for Jade Hindman, with conversations that keep you informed, inspired, and make you think. Our producers visit a park to talk to San Diegans about their thoughts on friendship. We'll also hear from mental health professionals on the challenges of making and keeping friends in San Diego. Then, the importance of third spaces, places outside work or home where people can meet and build community. That's ahead on KPBS Midday Edition. First, the news. There's nothing like a good friend. They are the people who make you laugh, they have your back, and they take care of you when times get tough. But when's the last time you sat down and really took stock of your friendships? And what about new friends? Making friends as an adult can be challenging. So on today's show, we're trying something a little different. We're taking a deep dive into friendship. We'll talk about how to find friends, make friends, keep friends, and everything in between. And joining me now are this show's producers, Ashley Rush and Juliana Domingo, who also happen to be friends with each other. So welcome to you both, Ashley and Juliana.
Hey, Andrew. Good to be here.
Yeah, hey, Andrew. It's good to be here, too.
So how did you two come up with this idea to produce a show about friendship?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about the show for a long time, so it's hard to kind of pinpoint exactly when we decided to do it. But personally, I also just finished Broad City, so I think the theme of friendship and, the strength of platonic love was really top of mind for me. So I think Juliana and I just started talking about this show, and things kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, and I feel like friendship is just a really universal topic. You kind of go up to anybody and ask about, their friends or what they think about friendship, and they'll always have something to say. And I think that's been our experience with this particular show. And I think, in San Diego, people have varying experiences of friendship or with making friends or keeping friends. So that's also something that we wanted to explore.
So tell me about your friendship. You work together. Would you say you're friends as well?
I think so.
Yeah, I think we're definitely
so.
friends.
Yes. Okay, good.
I'm like,
good.
Are we? No,
Yes.
we're friends too. And that's something we wanted to explore too, is like, how do you go from the coworker category to, okay, we're now friends outside of work. We do XYZ. We get, drinks. We get a coffee. But Juliana and I, we're texting outside of work hours. So I think we've made that transition.
Yeah, and I feel like Ashley and I were definitely in a very similar stage of life, which,
Yes.
Really helps. I remember, I think the first time we actually got to sit down and have a conversation, you had just come to San Diego, and then we had a coffee, and we just chatted for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And I think that's when we knew that, we clicked as not just coworkers, but also as friends, and that this could be, something that could last, I guess, or, but
Aww.
yeah.
No, yeah.
Go ahead.
And the part about us being in a similar age group or similar stage of life, we're both in our mid-20s, and I think, you're outside of college, so there's not kind of built-in social structures to meet people, but you're maybe building a family or all of these other things where there's other ways to make friends or, adult friends through your children or something, So it's kind of this like awkward stage in the middle.
Yeah. So you decided to take the show outside of the KPBS studios. You went to Kate Sessions Park in Pacific Beach. Tell me why you decided to do that for the show.
So one thing that we really wanted to explore, or one thing that we are exploring in the show, is this idea of third spaces. So we wanted to go out to a third space where people just sort of gather and connect, or even make new friends. And so Kate Sessions Park was a big one for us. It's one of the most popular parks in San Diego, and so we just wanted to go out on a Friday afternoon, Friday evening, and see, what people were up to. And we ended up encountering a lot of different groups of friends who were just doing whatever. Some were holding birthday parties. Others were just there to have picnics and spend time together. Others were, even playing sports. So a lot of, just a big variety of activities. But it's definitely a place where, people just come to spend quality time together. And so I feel like that was really important. And, as we were looking to speak to people and find people who could talk about their friendship.
It was definitely a fun social experiment walking up to people with a big microphone and asking them about their friendship. But I think for a few of them, you could tell, what a special opportunity it was to talk about their friend with them sitting right next to them. So we compiled some of those interviews together in a little package for you. So take a listen.
We're here at K Sessions Park interviewing just groups of friends across San Diego. So how do you guys know each other?
We met through our friend Tati.
Yeah. We met rock climbing.
Yeah, we met rock climbing.
Yes.
Actually, we're like the survivors for a friend group. Yeah. Yeah, we were 4, but we're the only the two of us. Yeah.
I joined the flag football league, and this is my captain. And yeah, we kind of just hit it off.
We met at a bar because my boyfriend was with her, and I was checking him out, and I thought he was straight because he was with her. And then
Let me tell the story. Okay, so
Could you just walk me through the moment that you guys met and realized you could become potential friends?
I feel like the second time we climbed, you also brought peaches to the gym.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had some peaches that grow in the place I rent. They have a peach tree, so I was just I'm gonna bring a bunch of peaches. So.
And I was like, okay, I think I like this guy. He could be my friend. He brings peaches randomly.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's easy or hard to make friends in San Diego? What's been your guys' experience with that?
I think it does depend on which neighborhood you live in. So I know a lot of my coworkers live in Ocean Beach, and it's rather easy to make friends there. But if I live in Mira Mesa, which I do, it's a whole different story, because the only other place you can meet someone is H Mart.
It's hard now to just walk up to someone and become their friend, because it seems like everybody has their people, whatever, and everyone's also, not to be annoying, but just looking at their phones these days. So it's harder to people aren't as approachable.
I think it depends on the life stage. I think 20s and single, it's hopefully pretty easy in San Diego, but I'm 30, 32. So I feel it's getting harder the older I get to meet new people.
I just did the things that I love doing and then made friends through that. So I've made friends through surfing, and then mutual friends of each other's. We all introduced each other.
Meeting new people, I find it pretty difficult to find like-minded people in San Diego. Although everybody's always out and about and having a great time, but finding people who have the same kind of values.
When it comes to making friends and keeping friends, what do you guys look for in a good friend?
I would say consistency and showing up. I think a lot of people cancel a lot. So a friend that shows up and can have a good time, those are the good ones.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I'm going to second that. And also just someone you can be yourself around, I think that's a really big one. And then I actually met someone recently that said they only stay in relationships that nurture them too.
What's the secret to keeping the friendship alive?
We don't keep anything to ourselves when it's a problem or anything like that. We just tell the other.
Yeah, I think we're both very direct with our emotions. In all of our relationships, we kind of are that person. And I saw her an eldest daughter kind of figure myself, and a bigger sister that I don't have.
Anyone else have anything else you want to say? Any last advice, parting words?
Everyone should be friends with us. And should I give them all our address? Yeah. To just find us? Or is that not good? At least friends with everyone. Maybe not. Yeah. Okay, we'll just walk around Ocean Beach and then find us. So true. And then be our friends.
I love her like my sister.
I feel like the best friends I have are no longer friends. They truly are family. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because it's like a chosen village.
Chosen village, that's good.
So what are your big takeaways from your time at the park?
Yeah, from what you can hear, actually I think it can come across in the audio as well, just people really lit up when we asked them about, their friendships. And so I guess a big takeaway for me, you heard that last bit about the chosen village. I think Ashley can also speak more to this, but really friendships are about the people in your life who you choose to be with and who you choose to really make an effort to form a connection with, and also just continue to build a community around. And I think that was a really big takeaway.
Yeah, and we were just really impressed by how thoughtful the responses were. We also asked everyone that we spoke to for some questions for some of our guests that we'll be speaking with later this hour. And like what Juliana said about the chosen village, we really wanted to end with that piece because it really speaks to the importance and the resonance of friends in someone's life. I think about my friends and I just think about how far they've taken me and what they do for me on a day-to-day basis. So this show is kind of a tribute to all of our friends, I would say, as well.
I've been speaking with Juliana Domingo and Ashley Rush, who are Midday Edition producers and friends. Well, thank you so much, Ashley and Juliana.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Well, we're going to turn now to two experts on the subject of friendship. Mitzi Ruelas is a licensed marriage and family therapist here in San Diego, and Dan Singley is a psychologist and director of the Center for Men's Excellence in San Diego. Mitzi and Dan, welcome to you both.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Mitzi, I'll start with you. When your clients come to you with friendship-related issues, what are you typically hearing from them?
Yeah. I hear more often people struggling making new friends or making connections that are of depth. Oftentimes clients say that maybe they hang out with somebody here and there, but they have like a hard time building like a foundation for the relationship. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the other thing that I notice is navigating a long-term friendship as changes and transitions happen is another thing that clients will bring up.
Dan, how about you? What friendship problems show up in your practice?
So to clarify, a lot of people hear the Center for Men's Excellence and think, okay, he only thinks about dudes. And in fact, at the practice, we see people of all genders, male identified, and then the people that love them. And so really kind of top tier, I see two clusters of issues. One is the men and the boys themselves really devaluing the importance of friendships. And that gets much worse as you go on. Like I do reproductive mental health. And so the dude to dad transition, friendship's one of the first things that'll go. The other kind of cluster of what I see that I think is pretty important is non-male loved ones that feel like, well, he's just kind of like, he's just there. He doesn't really need friends. And a real confusion about what connection and intimacy and friendship really mean to men in today's society.
And I think what you're talking about is loneliness. It's a growing public health crisis. I think we're talking about it a lot as a culture. It's gotten worse during the pandemic. Studies show that 1 in 3 Americans experience loneliness at least weekly. Dan, how do social relationships benefit our overall well-being?
Well, let me do the doom and gloom first. So the Surgeon General under President Biden put out a very important report on loneliness in the United States today. Unfortunately, given the bandwagon that I'm always on, they didn't really break things out by gender, which of course I would have liked to see because of what I just said about men. But one of the findings in that was that in aggregate, the weathering effect of unwanted loneliness and isolation over time has the same impact on mortality and morbidity, like how sick you get, how quickly you die, as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Like, let that settle in. Being lonely, which doesn't mean you're not around people, means you're not connecting, you're not investing, you're not getting that serve and return of attunement and empathy and connection and attachment and so forth. You die sooner and you struggle more. So naturally, on the flip side, the question you actually asked me was, what's good about it? And what's good about it is having friendships where one can mirror back and forth. And when I say friendships, family's great, partners are great, awesome. And the way that I choose to do this work with men is to say, you need 4 other relationships. They don't have to be besties, but 4 legs on a table, 4 support people. And when they do that, they have a context for a serve and return for the mirroring of, hey, here's how I experience you. It can be sort of the counter to the negative stuff I say to myself about myself every day. When I have cultivated relationships with people that I care about and who are meaningful to me, what they reflect back to me, what they mirror me, and with men, it's not verbal. And they're not saying, I think you're really cool and smart and responsible, and let's go play and be friends in the sandbox. Like, that's the subtext of what it means when you say, let's go get a coffee. But not having that means we don't get to see ourselves in other people's eyes, which is so important.
Well, let's take a listen to some questions that we received from folks out in Kate Sessions Park. One thing that has come up is maintaining friendships through different stages of life. Here's a question we got from Katie.
I guess a good question could be how they've seen friendships mold and change through different seasons of life. I think when you go through different seasons, friendships can look a lot different or change, but then there's also friendships that change and stay sustained. So I guess just like curious how they see that happening in our world and what works to keep friendships sustained and where maybe it breaks down.
Mitzi, why don't you take this one?
Sure. Yeah, this is something that comes up a lot, and it's particularly challenging when the adjustments are happening or like transitions are happening at a different rate or different pace. I think what I've noticed sustains relationships is having flexibility and understanding for the transitions, and that naturally is going to take a little bit of an adjustment period for the friendship, and to trust the friendship and to check in with each other as you're going through these things, and to also not take it personally if somebody's really busy, but to, in some sort of way, checking in with your capacity and maintaining the friendship with the capacity that you do have.
We got a similar question about growing with friends through life stages and relationships. Here's a question from Brenda Delgadillo.
I would like to ask her what's the best way to grow along your friendships, and this would include also like their lifelong partners, because that's something that we've been struggling with lately, like accepting our friends and in their relationships and having to deal with the reality that this is going to be long lasting in the future. So how do you handle your friend when you don't want to lose them, but you don't really like or have a space in their relationship as well?
Dan, why don't you start on this one?
All right, so I'm going to do a little trinky, nerdy thing here for a sec. There's an area of psychology called interpersonal psychotherapy that focuses on relationships and the back and forth that fits nicely when we're going to look at relationships. And within that, an exercise I like to do with people that relates to, I think, the thoughtful point that she just made is that they're not stagnant, right? They shift over the life course. So we could look at this a number of different ways, but one of them is just to say, I like to tell people, neither biology nor momentum are really solid bases for mutually satisfying relationships, which means just because you're related to them or just because you've known them since the third grade, and that doesn't mean that it's really the best fit of a relationship. Sort of back up what Mitzi just said. At the same time, when you look at the life course, particularly for men, we become more and more isolated, and there are different, milestones. And what I will say is it only gets harder. It does not get easier as it gets funny. Like in the intro, I think it was Ashley that was interviewing one of the guys and said, yeah, I'm kind of we're in this middle period between, and I was wondering, well, what's the other bookend? Because when you get older, it's no easier. It only gets harder, in particular when you socialize men to have lots of fairly superficial relationships, but not really to prioritize depth of connection and emotional intimacy. Then, quite frankly, when you do start talking about those, you're stepping outside the man box and you're going to get shamed. That's why I loved when they were talking, when Ashley and Joanna were talking, and like, wait, are we friends? Yeah, I'm friends. Just the beauty, like the simplicity and the directness and frankly the awkwardness of that exchange between the two of them, I think goes a long way. Like, imagine they're two men having that conversation. Like the awkwardness factor gets ramped up that much more.
Yeah. And if I could add,
please.
I would agree to that it does get difficult as you get older and more responsibilities. And so what changes is that before you used to hang out with your friends when you were bored, when you had nothing to do. And that really rarely happens and doesn't really happen in, adulthood, especially after college and all of these things. And so while it's not romantic and while it's not very, cool to schedule in friends, you have to make time for it. Like if you wait for the moment where I'm free, then you're going to keep pushing that friend day and that experience. In terms of like when there's relationships and there's adjustments to that, I would invite people to involve their friends, right? If you're going to like a farmer's market with your partner and it's not like a date, ask your friend if they'd like to join, like that's okay too. So getting them involved.
Yeah. Well, we heard a question about group dynamics and friend groups. Here's Matthias.
When it comes to friendships, I feel like there's different types of friendships, right? There's people who you talk to regularly. There's people who you don't talk to for months, and it's okay. There's people who host more. There's people who are never host, but they're always down to join. How does one navigate finding your role in that?
Dan, Mitzi?
Well, one way that I try not to be like overly like robotic or mechanized about something as organic as friendships, but I'm really big on teaching people concrete ways to assess fit in their relationships. And to my way of thinking, fit, and you can apply this to any relationship, familial, romantic, platonic friendship. And fit boils down to kind of a 2x2 matrix. And fit it's a function of needs. Who do I need to be in our relationship? Who do I need you to be in our relationship? And then the flip. Who do you need you to be in our relationship? And who do you need me to be? And one of the examples given was in the intro was they're responsive, like they're consistent. They'll show up. So I need you to show up. Maybe part of what I need to be for fit in our relationship is I need to be the convener, or I need you to be the convener, and so then I will. These are just, examples, but other times it's I need to be able to be goofy or loving, or, sometimes I lead or you lead. But to me, most of that boils down to fit. And that's a very messy, kind of ill-defined concept that I think people would do a lot better in relationships if they did stop and take a look at who do I need to be, not just who do I need you to be.
Mitzi, anything to add?
Yeah, I would agree to that. I would agree that you're possibly all of them, right? Depending on the space, depending on the group, depending on like the friendship. And to even have a conversation with your friend of like, maybe they're needing something different or you're needing something different depending on where you are in life. But I would invite you to allow yourself to be more fluid and trust that, the dynamic in the system will find its balance.
We've got a pretty blunt question here, but I think it captures the challenge of making friends in today's world. Let's hear it.
How do you go up to someone without just annoyingly being like, hey, can I be your friend?
Mitzi?
Yeah, I think the best way to start would be with a compliment. And so oftentimes where some of my clients are like, how do I start making friends? I would, depending on your comfort level, I would say just like practice complimenting people, or asking them, hey, where did you get that? Or, do you see them walking out of a coffee shop? Hey, I've been looking at that coffee shop. What are your thoughts about it? And then if it sparks further conversation, cool. And if it doesn't, at least like you complimented somebody had a nice day, to start there as opposed to like, hey, want to be friends? I mean, maybe you could do that. Some people would probably be down, but start with a compliment.
Dan, how do we go out on a limb and try and make friends spontaneously?
Oh, I was going to answer a different question. I was actually just thinking how stoked I would be. Like I'm at In-N-Out and some dude rolls up and is like, oh my God, I love your t-shirt. You want to be friends? I think that would be too cool. I mean, the spontaneity piece of it, I think Mitzi nailed it. Like, it's really about sort of looking at the context. Now, with men in particular, like we're socialized to connect with each other, not about each other, but about that third thing that we're talking about, be it whatever's in the situation. Like, I'm dropping my kid off and you're dropping your kid off. Like, hey, those are cool kicks that your kid got, or, whatever the thing is. A lot of the work that I do is not so much about sort of cold calling new friends. It's about taking kind of an environmental scan of who are the people already in your life. Who's that colleague? Who's that person from school or church or whatever the thing is? And then how do you take it to the next level? And with those guys, usually what you find is they have been starving. They're starved for more connection, but they don't know how to go about it. And so oftentimes I'll just ask, we'll do like a little concentric circles. Where is this person? Okay, your friend, what's his name? Joaquin. Okay. And then you look at, okay, with Joaquin, what's the frequency you're in any kind of contact with him? Well, I'll see him like every 2 months. Okay, every 2 months, what happens? Well, we text. What do you text? Oh, he texts me dog videos. Cool. And then that's the content of it. Is it only dog videos or is it politics or what's going on with Joaquin's family? No, it's pretty much dog videos. And then we look at one of those factors, the frequency of communication, the medium of communication, and then the content of it. And I'll ask my guy, change one thing, not spill out your emotional baggage necessarily. Pick one thing. How about you go from 2 months to 1 month that you text him? Or how about you text him a doggo video and then let him know, I'm actually kind of having some work-life stress is like the lowest hanging fruit for dudes to like unburden themselves because you're not violating any bro dude moments. Like you're supposed to want a family. It's like it's the easiest way to begin the vulnerability thing, and you see what the other person does.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid we're out of time. This has been a great conversation, great advice here. I've been speaking with Mitzi Ruelas, a licensed marriage and family therapist here in San Diego, and Dan Singley, a psychologist and director of the Center for Men's Excellence in San Diego. Mitzi and Dan, thank you for your insight.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was so fun.
Yeah, thanks.
Coming up, where to meet friends outside home or work. Look for third spaces. KPBS Midday Edition is back after the break. Welcome back to KPBS Midday Edition. I'm Andrew Bowen, in for Jade Hindman. So far this hour, we've been talking about making friends in San Diego, and from what we've heard, it can be pretty tough. Well, you might have heard of third spaces, places to connect with others outside of home or work. Here to talk more about San Diego's third spaces is Lauren Mapp. She's the co-founder of Daylight San Diego, a local community-oriented nonprofit newsroom. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So remind us, what is a third space and where did this idea come from?
Well, the idea of the third space dates back to about the 1980s. It's the concept that your first place is your home or, the place where you live and sleep. Your second space is school or work. And a third space is anything outside of those two places where you might be connecting with people, meeting people, having conversations. And, historically, people had one place. They lived on a farm, they worked on the farm. Any friends that they met, maybe it was at the second space, like a church or something like that. But as the industrial age happened, we started working outside of the home more and needing to find other ways to connect with folks.
And so what are examples of third spaces?
I think some of the most common ones are coffee shops, libraries, bars or restaurants, like places where, especially bars in particular, where you're sitting at a bar top next to people that you don't know and kind of naturally striking up conversations.
So you started a series at Daylight San Diego all about San Diego's third spaces. Tell us more about this series and why you wanted to start it.
The idea for this series kind of stemmed with some reporting that I was doing last year. I had covered a program at San Marcos College, where the native students there had this place on campus where they were able to connect with one another, learn about different cultural aspects like drumming classes and traditional dance classes. And it was really just like their kind of place away from the classroom on campus where they could connect with other native students and professors. So that kind of was one part of the idea. Second part of the idea is I started reporting on the Block Club, which is a new place in the Black Arts and Culture District. And as I was going there, both for reporting and then just to casually be there for their crafternoon type activities, or they call them Soul Craft Saturdays, I was just seeing how open of a space it was and how people were connecting with one another. And so as I was writing that story, I had the idea to make this a whole series of covering third spaces and what they mean to the people that go there.
So what are some of the barriers that can make it hard for people to access a third space in their community or their neighborhood?
Well, availability, especially with the high cost of real estate, it's hard to have third spaces that are places where you have very low or no economic barrier to go there. I know one of my favorite coffee shops closed in the last year or so because, the story was that their rent had gotten increased and so they had to close their doors. And so if a place has a model where they're not necessarily there to make money, then it's harder to be able to rent in a city like San Diego where everything is so expensive. There's also the availability of your time. If you are maybe someone who's on public transit a lot and you don't have, your own car to get to places. Like, are you going to prioritize time to go to a third space, or are you just going to try to get home after work?
Yeah, and it's not even just about having a space or physical location to go to. It's also just, do you have time to go there? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And you mentioned in your story about third spaces a couple other issues that make it difficult to keep these spaces alive. One of them was car-centric development. Can you tell me more about that? Why would a car-centric development model or system make it hard for people to meet in third spaces?
Yeah, so with car-centric development, that means you're spending a lot more time in your car. So if you live in Poway, but you work in downtown San Diego, as an example, you might be spending like a whole hour in your car. Versus if we had really good public transit, you'd be on the bus, or you'd be on a trolley or subway or something, and you'd be just naturally interacting with other people. Because we kind of have this urban sprawl, there's just fewer places where there's concentrations of spaces where you can walk from your house to a cafe, or walk from your house to a library or something like that.
Yeah, and I think about how even there are a lot of driveways and curb cuts, in a sidewalk that can sort of disrupt the flow of pedestrians and create conflict points between cars, and that can sort of discourage walking. And people want to be where people are and walking where other people are walking. I mean, this is the whole idea of mixing, of seeing other people in chance encounters, right?
Yeah, and I think about this on El Cajon Boulevard in particular. Like you have this kind of corridor along 30th where there's a lot of businesses, but they're kind of like all spread out. But then if you go east from 30th, you get to this point where it's no longer friendly to be a pedestrian. And there's also not businesses that you can pop in and out of. I think you hit an electric station, you get onto this really dangerous bridge that's hard to walk on, and then there's a grocery store that's been closed down and a bank. Like, there's not like a lot of places that you want to like walk to and pop in and maybe meet people.
And places along the way, along the journey that are just interesting to look at, or,
Yeah. I mean, compare that to like kind of the heart of North Park, where like there's bookshop after bookshop and coffee shops and restaurants and bars. Like, there's just like a lot of different things to do in a very short walking distance.
So what's your own experience with third spaces?
Yeah, so when I was a college student here in San Diego living in Normal Heights, I used to go to Lestat's on Adams Avenue on a nearly daily basis, in part because I didn't really have a quiet place to study or work from home, and in part because I just liked the kind of hustle and bustle of being in the coffee shop late at night. Lestat's was open 24/7 at that time. And I would sit at this big communal table, and that's how I met one of my very dear friends, Paige. I think I talk about her a little bit in the kind of like intro to this series. And, we would just sit there and like both be doing our homework. We wouldn't have met if it wasn't for both working in this one coffee shop, because she went to a totally different school from me, had a totally different major, had different career paths and whatnot. And we met two older writers, one of whom had written scripts for Star Trek, because they also used to sit at this big communal table. And we just kind of struck up this friendship with them. I ended up in like a scene in one of his short films, and we would play this game called Dungeon Quest, and like it would just be like our kind of 3 a.m. break of like, we've been doing homework for hours. Okay, let's play Dungeon Quest.
And you're alluding to this idea of mixing, of meeting people who are not from the same background, maybe don't have the same interests as you. Can you talk about third spaces as a place where, there is a mix of people, there's a diversity, and you're not just meeting people who are all into the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like with the example that I had with Lestat's, like, the two friends that we met were much older than we were. They were probably about 40 years older than us. People that I wouldn't have necessarily met in my day-to-day life. They weren't college students or things like that. Another place where I've like met folks as an adult has been swing dancing classes. And of course, you're all being brought in for that one thing, but everybody has interests outside of that. I've met engineers. I've met, one of my kind of friends from the swing dance scene is a man who I believe just turned 100. And is actually from the city that I grew up in, but there's no way that he and I would have met if it wasn't for being in that third space of the Firehouse.
We've talked about third spaces on our show before, and it always generates a lot of conversation and feedback. Why do you think this idea resonates so much with people?
I think people are lonely, and it's really hard to make friends outside of school and work. If you're, long past your school days, or if you're working from home, primarily, you're not having those kind of natural conversations, just like walking to and from class or walking to go get coffee at the coffee station or having lunch outside of the office or something. And so I think people are really craving other places where they can build connections.
And how do you encourage people to find their own third space?
Yeah, so at Daylight San Diego, we launched a series called Weekend Energy about, I'm not exactly sure how long ago, but sometime last year we launched Weekend Energy. And this is a roundup where we go through and we find events happening all throughout San Diego County of, different art gallery openings and different, kind of curated conversations and things. So we have a weekly calendar that comes out to highlight those events. We also are launching our own series this month called the Daylight Culture Club. And so this is going to be an occasional arts and culture series, kind of think a book club, but you don't have to do homework first, and not necessarily around authors and books. And so we're having our first event in that series at the end of the month. It's called Making Home, and it's all about how the immigrant community finds a place of home through their art and remembers, where they came from.
Well, third space is such an important part of our society. Thank you so much for sharing. I've been speaking with Lauren Mapp. She's a co-founder and reporter with Daylight San Diego. And we'll link to her Third Spaces series on our website at kpbs.org/midday. Lauren, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Still ahead, a San Diego journalist finds community through improv. KPBS Midday Edition returns after the break. Welcome back to KPBS Midday Edition. I'm Andrew Bowen, in for Jade Hindman. This past hour, we've been talking all about friendship, the psychology behind it, and how we make friends. Well, one way people are connecting is through comedy. My next guest is a journalist by day and an improviser by night. Maura Fox joins me now. She's a reporter with the San Diego Union Tribune and the founder of Let Me Have It, an all-femme improv team. Maura, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you've done your fair share of reporting on how to make friends in San Diego. Talk to me about this story you did in 2022 and why you wanted to report on it.
Yeah, so we were reporting this story. I reported this story as part of a series that the Union Tribune did about New Year's resolutions, kind of how to maximize your new year. And I was coming from a place personally of thinking I want to make friends, make community in the new year. And I don't think I was alone in that experience. I think a lot of folks in the new year are seeking ways to put themselves out there, be brave. And so that was the part of this that was the main reason for writing this story. And it was really interesting for me. Like I said, it was personal as well as it was wanting to, give San Diego readers a way to make friends. I was also seeking this out myself. I had recently moved back to San Diego and was finding, wanting to make connections with folks.
And how did that story become your own personal gateway into friendship?
Well, yeah, I mean, I knew that I wanted to report it from kind of a personal narrative because at that time I was going through like the early stages of improv classes at Mockingbird Improv in Liberty Station here in San Diego. And I knew that something was brewing. I knew that I was on the route to making friends through that. And I thought that would be kind of a good way to get into the story of showing readers, hey, not only am I this like external reporter who's got all the friends in the world and is, doesn't need this, but I was also like, I'm doing this, as much as the readers are wanting it.
So for the uninitiated, tell us about improv, how it works and how you practice it.
Sure. Well, first, improv is a lot of fun. You can do it through various means. You can do it just because it is fun. You want to get on stage and have a laugh and entertain people, which is a big part of the reason why I do it. But it also is a really great way to build confidence. You are putting yourself out there to make a mistake, to say something goofy, and there's something really, really special about that. And it can just build, strong public speaking skills. And again, that bravery that I think is, there's not a lot of avenues for us to just like put ourselves out there as adults, especially, and play kind of in a very childlike way that feels lacking for a lot of us.
Yeah. And, journalism can take a lot out of us, I think. I imagine improv feels very freeing. There's, really no limits to what you can act out on stage.
Mm-hmm.
What sets it apart from your day job?
So much, every part of it. As you know, our jobs are very exacting. We have to get things right. That our goal is to strive for correctness, for the truth. And that is so important. It is also stressful and taxing. And so when I do improv, I'm not worried about saying the right thing. I'm not worried about a fact checker, calling me out for something. It's just fun. And I think that is freeing. If I didn't have it, I think I'd be very like structured, living in this like really rigid box. But improv gives you this chance to just just relax and have fun in a way that is just so unique from our day jobs.
And how has improv been a good avenue for you to make friends?
Yes, well, it works. I promise. I think, like I was mentioning earlier, that you're doing something that is so vulnerable, and I think when you're doing that with a group, it has like a very powerful effect, because you're putting yourself out there to make a mistake, and you have a group of people around you that is they're cheering you on. They're actually like clapping for you or hooting and hollering, and in that you just learn a lot about people. Once you kind of open that door to vulnerability, to making a fool of yourself in front of somebody, you're sort of like, nothing's off the table now. Like, now we can be best friends. And I think that, if anything, like my friendships through improv have been very fast. They're very deep, but they also they just happen really quickly, because you find like in a month or even less, you are so bound to a person because, you stood on a stage with them and did a weird scene about wacky characters, and that's awesome.
I imagine bombing might also bring you closer together to people.
You have no idea.
Oh, yeah, I'm
and
sure.
And you do bomb, because that's life.
That's life. And you founded this all-femme improv team. Tell me about it and how it has created a community for you.
Yeah, so I'm a co-director on this team. It's called Let Me Have It at Mockingbird Improv. It's very special, because I think that friendships anyway in improv are deep and awesome, but then when you take it to this like all-femme sisterhood element, it's even richer. Something about improv and comedy that may or may not be fully known is that it can be a very male-dominated activity, and so many women will tell you that when you're in a scene with somebody on stage with a man, you'll often be designated as the woman, the mother, the sister, and it's kind of limiting in a way that if you wanted to play the rugged truck driver man, you might not be able to do that. So all to say that when you are performing with women, you're just granted more opportunities to be sillier, and it in a very deep way feels limitless. And then again, those friendships with women, I think, are just very important to have.
And if somebody is considering trying out improv but maybe feels a bit daunted by the idea, how would you encourage them to do it?
Just do it. I think that of course it's nerve-wracking, and know that you don't have to become a performer. I mean, that's something that I ended up wanting to do, but to do a workshop, to do a class series, just to build that confidence, and kind of put yourself in a situation that might feel uncomfortable, but very worth it. Just know that you don't have to ultimately try to audition for SNL or anything. It can just be a really good way to meet like-minded individuals.
Any parting words for folks who are in search of friends here in San Diego, or who want to do more to maintain the friendships that they have already?
Gosh, well, I am no expert, certainly, but I think if it feels a little uncomfortable, that's okay. You're on the right track, and I think knowing that, especially when I was starting in improv, it was me and everyone else who was trying to make friends. We were all in that same boat. And so knowing that you aren't alone, we're all seeking connection. This is a very relatable experience.
Yeah, yes, it is. Well, I've been speaking with Maura Fox. She's an improviser and reporter, and you can see her team Let Me Have It perform at Mockingbird Improv at Liberty Station. Maura, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And that's our show for today. If you missed anything, you can download KPBS Midday Edition on all podcast apps. Don't forget to watch Evening Edition tonight at 5 for in-depth reporting on San Diego issues. You can also share your feedback or segment ideas by emailing us at midday@kpbs.org or call us. The number is 619-452-0228. I'm Andrew Bowen in for Jade Hindman. Join us again tomorrow. Thanks for listening and have a great day.
KPBS On Demand is supported by the San Diego Arab Film Festival, featuring films from and about the Arab world. The festival screens feature and short films March 27th through April 19th at the Museum of Photographic Arts at the San Diego Museum of Art. Information and tickets at sandiegoaff.org.